Hello and welcome to Habits of Influence, a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly side of entrepreneurship and building a movement to where you become the person others wish to follow. Today on the show, we have Alison A Moye, who's a children's author. Alison, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Ian. I appreciate the invitation.
My pleasure. Just to get us started, would you go ahead and tell our audience a little bit about you and what got you started in writing children's books?
Oh, absolutely. I've always been a writer since I can remember, probably because my parents instilled such a love of reading into me. They read stories to me when I was a child, and I just developed a love of reading that naturally gravitated toward writing. So I've been writing as long as I can remember. And when I got into a career path, I wanted to go into some kind of journalism. So I was in broadcasting for about 12 years. And I still wrote through that period of time. I've always been writing, but I was in broadcasting for 12 years, mainly in radio, and I was going to go on and be the next Diane Sawyer, which I'm so glad I didn't. I sort of had a change in my career path after 12 years, loved it, worked for ABC and Disney Radio.
Ooh, that's fun.
I did on-air talent, and then I had a public affairs show. So it was really a Shangri-La experience in my life at that time, one I'm so grateful for. And then I migrated over to, believe it or not, healthcare administration. And it was another beautiful period in my life where I just experienced some of the good, the bad, and the ugly that you see sometimes in a corporate environment. So learning to navigate those murky waters was really a challenge. So the highs were really high and sometimes the lows were quite low. So learning to manage and navigate that was definitely a learning experience for me. And that springboarded me into MakeAWish Foundation, being a wish granter and a wish ambassador for them, which was by far probably the best job I've ever had in my life. There's nothing better than making wishes come true for kids. And I did a lot of work with the American Heart Association during that period of time. So I really springboard from one blessing to another, which really expanded my experience and really gave me a lot of really great experiences to remember and teach others from, to help others learn from.
So I've got a couple questions. Do you mind if I jump in? Because you got my mind just spinning in a million different directions right now. Sure. So you went from broadcasting into healthcare. Help me understand, how did that transition happen? Like, where would you say, oh, I'm going to do all this on-air stuff and work with Disney and all this to go into healthcare administration? Like, where and how did that happen?
Well, just one thing led to another. And I really didn't like where the broadcasting industry was going. And I felt like I needed a change, and there was an opportunity at the hospital for me to go in from a non-clinical perspective and really meet some fascinating people, from physicians to nurses to other corporate leaders in healthcare. And it was just meant to be. It was one of those life paths that I was meant to flow in that direction. And it really was life-changing in a lot of ways.
All right, so now onto the MakeAWish thing, because now that's got me. I'm sure you've seen and experienced a lot, and from what I know about MakeAWish, it's usually kids who are in some sort of terminal something, and their wish is trying to be granted before they pass, right?
Well, actually, that is not quite exactly how it works. The MakeAWish Foundation of America, we service children between the ages of 2 and 18 who have a life-threatening medical condition. So it does not necessarily mean that they have a terminal illness. In fact, there are many children. One of my kids that I had he was diagnosed with a lymphoma, and he was going through radiation and all of the treatments, but he was just an amazing kid. And he overcame everything. He is now in remission, and he is working. He's even a chair for the American Cancer Society now for their Relay for Life program. So you go in trying to make a wish, and really everything is about that kid, and you're wanting to help them get their greatest wish, help to make it come true. and you think, I'm going to change them. But actually, through the process, you're the one that ends up getting changed. And by far the most rewarding work I've ever done.
What would be, and this is way off topic, but it's, you got me peaked now. If you had to pick one situation or one wish that you were able to help grant that really left an impact, what would it be and why?
Well, actually, it would be, oh gosh, there's so many. I have to pick one.
Pick one.
Well, I will tell the story of Chase. I can use his first name. And he is actually the one who is that I just referenced. So his wish, you go in and you have a partner. So you and your partner go in and you meet with the family and the child. And you really get to know everything about that child. You get to know what their favorite color is, you just get to know them, really the essence of who they are. So you spend time with them. And then you ask the big question, what is your wish? What do you want? What is your ultimate wish? And so they say, I want to be, or I want to do, or I want to have, or I wish to go. So those are some of the examples of wishes. And so he said, I know what my wish is. And I said, well, what is it, Chase? And he said, my wish is to meet Rascal Flatts. So in case you don't know who Rascal Flatts is, they're a country music group. And I said, well, that's interesting. Why do you tell me why you want to meet them for your wish? And what is it about them that makes you just want to meet them? And so he said, well, actually, they care about kids with cancer. They care about kids like me. And I said, well, tell me about that. And he said, well, they made this song about a little girl who, it's called Skin. So it's talking about her journey with cancer and how no one wants to take a girl with no hair to the prom. And her date opens the door. And when he opens the door, he takes off his hat and he has shaved his head for her. And so the title of the song is Skin, because she reaches her hand up to touch the top of his head, and she felt skin. And so that was just so very touching. And he was like, I just really want to meet them. I think they're cool. I love their music. And that's my wish. And so we did get Chase's wish granted. And he went and he met Rascal Flatts at their concert backstage. And Taylor Swift had opened for them. So he also fell in love with Taylor Swift while he was there. But just an incredible young man who has such an incredible heart and spirit and resiliency. And I will tell you a story about Chase right quick. So he was on the unit at the Children's Hospital. And whenever children were admitted, the nursing staff gives them prayer bears. So they're little bears with praying hands. And so there was a little girl his age named Amber, adjacent from the hall from him. Now, his mom, Tina, was a very lovely lady. I still is. And she was always very honest with Chase. They had a very good, open, honest relationship. So she didn't hide things from him. Excuse me. And so Amber was not doing well. And he said, Mom, what's going on with Amber? And she said, well, honey, Amber's not going to be with us very much longer. And so he's watching all of this unfold. He's watching the nurses and the staff go in and out of the room, and Amber did pass. And so when Amber's mom finally came out of the room, Chase ran up to her and threw his arms around her and just said, Amber would want you to have my prayer bear. So, I mean, he's just one of those people who is just, their heart is so big. And so he was definitely one of my more memorable wishes that I helped grant.
And when you think about it, it's almost like such a selfless ask that he had, right? Like a lot of kids, yes. Disney World, they go here, go this place, or meet somebody famous for themselves. But this kid wanted to meet somebody who was impacting lives or cared about people. This is beautiful. Thanks for sharing the story.
Oh, sure.
And what a rewarding experience it's got to be able to do that and be able to provide that experience for those kids and impact their lives. And then to be able to see the give back and turnaround is also beautiful as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, he definitely touched me. His warmth, his spirit, his generosity. I think children are the best teachers. I really do. And I think that they teach us how to find our smile when we've lost it, how to find our hope when we've lost that as well. So I think children are amazing.
So that's a perfect segue into my next question, which is you're currently getting ready to launch a new children's book.
Yes.
All right. Do you want to talk about that real quick? Like, what is the book? What was the inspiration for it? Obviously
Sure.
you have a connection with kids and, understand their value and their power and all that, but, tell us about your book.
Sure. My book is called Ellie Bell, the Ballerina, and it is based on my niece, actually. She had seizures from a very young age. And so she came out of the womb dancing. She's just always been a dancer. And so when she developed seizures in pre-K, she went through a lot with the seizures. So she always had that dream in her heart and that drive and that resiliency to overcome, whatever it was. So she still was dancing. And it's really her story about overcoming her seizures to achieve her dreams of dancing, in the ballet and just being a dancer, period. So it's her story, and it's certainly dedicated to her. And she was certainly the inspiration for it. And she has the smile that is so infectious, and she's got this sweet countenance about her. So it's a reminder that no matter what adversity that comes your way, there's a way to push through it. And so that is the message of that book. And I hope it inspires both children and adults alike and helps them remember if there's a dream in your heart or there's some goal that you want to reach, you can achieve it. There are ways to do that.
100%, 100%. And while you're on that part, I love your little segue. It's working right in. So on that, with your goal and dream of being a writer, what were some of the hurdles you had to overcome, or what were some of the, maybe your accomplishments or maybe struggles as a writer?
Well, I think in getting started with writing a book, because I started another book that was based in business and mainly focused in women in business. And so I did actual case studies in the book. So that book is actually still tied up with legal review. And so I really, when I saw Ellie and her story and my connection there, I said, I'm going to do a children's picture book. And I for about a year, I just struggled. I was like, where do I start? And do I find a literary agent and an editor? And do I do self-publishing or do I do traditional publishing? They were just you're just drowning in a sea of information and not quite knowing where to turn. And there are scam artists in every industry that seek you out. So it's a little bit about learning where the sharks are and which direction to take. So I ended up meeting someone who actually was having a challenge specifically for children's book writers. And so what a godsend this was for me, and really catapulted me on my journey to getting my children's book out into the world. And through that same opportunity and that same group, I was able to become a writing coach and also help others who had a story and they didn't have confidence enough to get their story out. They didn't know what to do with it. Were they good enough? So really meeting people where they are and really helping them bring their story to life and bring it out and onto paper. So that is also an incredible part of what I'm doing now. But really the challenge was just finding the right people. I think you have to surround yourself with the right people. I think with any kind of team thing, anything you do, you're not an island. You have to surround yourself with good people. And the best advice I can give somebody is find somebody who's successful. As an entrepreneur, you find someone who's already successful in doing what they're doing, and you learn from them.
So I'm going to poke the bear here for a minute because I fully agree with you. But as let's say I'm a new writer and I want to dive into this, how do I find those people? How would I find somebody and how would I be able to filter to know who is legit versus who is a scam artist?
Well, again, that is trial and error. Unfortunately, that is part of the business in any business. But if you do see that there are successful people, and there are successful people everywhere across the board who have reached that pinnacle, whether it's podcasting, whether it's writing a book, whether it's doing real estate, there are mentors everywhere who are successful and who are valid and viable, and good resources to tap into. So that is my first advice, is to find those people who are successful, people who you already know and admire. And even if you don't know them personally, you know of their work. So if that's a genre you're interested in, you're already going to see some potential mentors along the way.
Are there certain things that you look for? If you were looking for somebody to help you with the book, what would you look for? Is there certain, like, is there credentials that you would look up, or is there, personalities, or, how do you find them? Like, so maybe I see somebody who is a writer, like, wow, I'd really like to get in touch with that person. How would I do that?
Well, today in the information age and with social media, everybody has a web page, everybody has social media. So there is a way to reach those people. And I will tell you, the author community is the most embracing, warm community of people I've met. We all learn to help each other. So we promote each other's books. I would suggest getting involved in a writing group. There are so many writing groups that have well-known authors as a part of them, or literary guilds, which is what I did. I definitely dove into all of those groups. And again, that's how I found the group that I'm associated with now, who did the Children's Book Challenge, who really helped catapult me into the sphere that I'm in now.
So what was that challenge? Because you've referenced it a couple of times. What was the actual challenge?
It was a children's book writing challenge. And he had already published 8 children's books. He had a passion for children's books. So he was viable, and he was vetted. So the only way to do that is to do your own research about people and really know where they're coming from, and have conversations with them and see if that's something you're interested in aligning yourself with, or people that you wish to align yourself with. So it does take work. It doesn't magically fall into your lap. If that's something you want, you have to seek it out. You have to seek out those mentors. You have to join the groups. You have to do the research, and you have to do the work.
I think that's the big part that a lot of people miss on this journey, is there is work involved. People think they're going to jump into any realm of business, whether you're opening a business or starting a business or whatever, and they think you're just magically going to have sales come through. And that is one of the biggest myths. You don't just get sales. You don't just get people knowing about you. You have to get out there. You have to get the exposure. You have to get, some sort of branding or marketing. And that's, I'll admit, that's one of my biggest weaknesses, is the marketing piece. But you have to build reputation. You have to build credibility. It takes a little bit of time. There's not an overnight, oh, I wrote this book, look, I sold 10 million copies today. No, that doesn't happen, unless you've got somebody really hard pushing it. You get on Shark Tank and you have got them pushing millions of dollars for people to buy these books. Yes. But, you've got to get out there. You have to be known. You have to let people know about the product. It has to hit the right, check the right boxes, right? You have to get
absolutely
people, get in front of the right audience that's going to pique that interest.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work from the writing is not so much as, it's not as difficult. It's actually the process of publishing a book that takes time and patience. And a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to write this book and it's just going to be done. I'm going to cross my arms and it's going to happen. I've actually had so many hurdles with this particular book. My illustrator is phenomenal, but this was my first children's picture book. It was her first children's picture book. And my book designer also was relatively new at that. So we had a lot of hurdles to cross over. And we made some mistakes along the way, which certainly had a delay with the book. I have experienced, I thought I was going to launch it at this date and this date and this date. And it just wasn't happening because I had to bring in some new people in my team with with certain things. And I put the cart before the horse being new. I got my illustrations done before I had the book designer come in. And so that's kind of like building a house without the full plans. So we had to backtrack a little bit and do some reworking on some things. So lessons learned. You never do something for the first time without really having some. So my character had some adversity in her story to overcome. I had some adversity in actually making the book a reality. So yes, it is not always easy. In fact, it rarely is. Something that's worth having takes work.
Is there a tip or trick that you would offer to somebody who was getting started on, what to make sure that they do or don't do as a young writer or as a new writer?
Yes, I would definitely say get your story out there, write it on paper. And the reason I say write it on paper is you're connected with your story that way. And it was a grueling process to write out my story, but that is what any good editor will tell you to do. So I would recommend that first. And then I would recommend that you find a writer's group that you can bounce your story off trusted people who are also authors. And some people don't feel comfortable doing that because they don't want their story to be stolen. I can understand that. But find yourself a really good editor who can look over your story. And I would recommend a developmental editor because it's not somebody just checking for punctuation or grammar. It's somebody who gets involved in your story. They put themselves inside the story and they're really able to bring out some developmental elements to connect your reader better with your story. So finding a good editor and one that you connect with is very important. One who understands your story and wants to preserve the story, but also make it better. So I would recommend that. And then when you're ready to publish, decide which route you want to go. And from that point, I would, once you have your editor, you need to get your illustrator and you need to get a book designer. So there are several components to doing, especially a children's picture book. So that's what I would recommend. That's how you get started.
When you say determine what route you want to go, what do you mean by that?
Whether you're going to go self-publishing or traditional publishing.
Gotcha.
Traditional publishing is going through one of the major book houses, publishing houses, and that can take 2 to 5 years. Whereas if you now, I will tell you the best route is to go through self-publishing, where you can have worldwide distribution of your books and you have more control. Whereas with a traditional publishing house, they kind of own your book.
Gotcha. And then yes, you mentioned pen to paper. Do you mean that physically? Like if I was to be on a computer typing, or do you actually mean that physically writing?
Well, I would recommend if you have a novel in your head, obviously you're going to want to type that out. But with your outlines, I would recommend anybody needs to do an outline, whether they're doing a children's book or an adult level book. You need to write out an outline and connect. There's something special about connecting the pen with the paper.
That's why I asked that question, because I mean, I've heard that. I know when you write goals, you're supposed to actually physically write them. Yes. When you're doing this different planning, you're supposed to physically write for a variety of different reasons. One, it's your mind retains it differently, and it becomes part of you when you're actually put that physical component versus actually typing, right?
Absolutely.
So there is something about that from a mental standpoint as well.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more. This is your first children's book?
Yes.
Are you planning on writing another one? Is there one in the pipeline, or is there something else? Because you've mentioned one book that was on hold. What's next steps for you?
Well, the next step is actually, it's an inspirational collective book. It's called The Comfort Cafe. So it's a collection of my writings through the years. Oh. So I'm really excited about that one. And that should be out before Christmas, right around Christmas time.
This year?
And this year.
Wow.
And next year.
That's like 4 months away.
Yes, I know. I
It's
know.
exciting.
It's already written. It's already edited. I just have a few illustrations that are going to go on the chapter pages. So, but I'm super excited about that one. That book definitely has a piece of my heart with it.
So when you say a collection of your writings, are they stories? Are they poems? Are they, what are they? Variety of different things?
I guess the closest thing I could relate it to is Chicken Soup for the Soul. If you've ever read a Chicken Soup for the Soul, that's what Comfort Cafe is similar to.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah. And Ellie Bell the Ballerina, there are 3 books in the series. There's the first one. There's a second one that actually focuses on bullying. And the third one, She Goes Dancing in Paris.
What's the first one?
The first one is the original in the series, based on a true story. That's based on her story of overcoming seizures to achieve her dreams of dancing in the ballet.
Gotcha. Okay. Perfect. Anything else that you would like to share? Any real ugly side, or anything really inspirational, or any like golden nugget that you would want to get out there? If you were to have one message to the world right now, what would it be?
Well, as far as leadership, if we're talking about leadership, I truly believe in servant style leadership. So I think if you want people to follow you, you have to lead the way. Whether that's being a writing coach, whether that's being an entrepreneur yourself. Servant leadership, to me, you're not only telling people what to do or telling people where to go, you're also showing them the way. You're showing them how to do it. So you're walking alongside them in that journey. And so with leadership, that's always been a key component of any of my leadership roles. I give you an example. When I was chair of the Heart Walk, I had a group of different leaders, and I think you have to meet people where they are. Not everybody, you have to learn people's strengths and weaknesses and learn to meet them where they're at and coach them along the way. If they're not where they need to be, then you have to take the time to coach them about what their role is, or you have to lead them.
And sometimes those conversations can be difficult, right? Like,
Yeah, courageous conversations.
They do, because you sometimes have to say something that might hurt somebody's feelings, or rub them the wrong way, or damage a relationship, or who knows, right?
Well, yeah, the truth is not always easy to deliver, especially when someone is not meeting the expectations. That can be very, very difficult. I've always tried to handle it with the KISS method. And it's like you sandwich the bad news in between 2 good pieces of news. It does soften the blow, but it also gets the message across. So I will start off, usually if I'm having to meet with somebody who is not meeting expectations, I try to find out why, first of all, because they could be having a personal crisis, they could be going through something. So I believe leadership, you have to have compassion as well as truth. So I've always tried to go into leadership with that mindset, to give them the benefit of the doubt and try to understand where they're at. And then be truthful. Be truthful, although it hurts to have a courageous conversation, it's important to have it. So I will start by saying, you know what? You're really good at this. I appreciate your effort here. However, we need to address this. This needs to be fixed. How can I help you fix it? What can I do to be a better support to you to help you get this to where we need it to be?
And I would say that's good for any, not just writing, but in business and relationships and any aspect. Like, hey, this is what's I'm enjoying this, not so much, and how can we together work through it? Right?
Absolutely. Well, it is. It's applicable to every area of life, be it personal, be it a business type of relationship. I believe communication is the lifeblood of any relationship. And so that is where I think we fail in leadership, when there's just not good communication. I think it's where we fail in life, when we don't have good communication and respect for each other. So that is the platform from which I bounce.
I would agree with that.
Yes.
One more thing before we wrap up. You mentioned that you have been mentoring or coaching other potential writers. Now, is that just a volunteer thing? Is that like a paid? Do people pay you as a coach? Are you a is that what you do for a side hustle? Say, hey, I coach and I'm looking for new clients. Like, tell me a little bit more about your coaching.
Actually, I do coach. I did coaching through the writing program that I was a part of. And so I was paid. It was a paid position. So I'm looking at branching into that again and doing some more mentoring. I'm currently not mentoring. Everything is focused on my 2 books that are coming out right now and doing the marketing and promotion and troubleshooting on that. So I really don't have time for any freelance or coaching right now, but it's certainly on the table for me in the future.
Perfect. Now, if our listeners want to get in touch with you or get, is there a way that people can look you up? Is there some way they can contact you? Is there some way if they want to learn more, or, even purchase your books? How would they do so?
Well, my books are going to be available at your nearest bookseller. They're going to be available at barnesandnoble.com and also amazon.com. And those are the 3 main ways to purchase my book, or they can find me on www.lovingyourjourney.net, which is my lifestyle blog, and my book will be available there as well.
Very cool. Do we have I know you said before Christmas for the one, and then when are all 3 of the series coming out at the same time? Are they going to be staggered? How's that working?
They're going to be staggered. So the first one will come out next year, probably in the spring, and more toward the fall for the last one in the series for Ellie Bell. But there are some other children's books in the pipeline as well. So definitely stay tuned.
Well, I'm excited to hear more about those also. And then any other contact information you had? I know you said the website, or was that your blog?
Yes, that's my blog.
Okay. That's the best way for people to contact you or find you. Excellent.
Yes.
Anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
Well, I just thank you for having me. And I love what you're doing as far as entrepreneurs, talking to other entrepreneurs and keeping those lines of communication open and teaching others. I think we need more of that. So I applaud you and your co-host for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was her idea and she's dragging me along with her. And, it's been a fun journey, and thank you for taking the time to jump in on this call and being willing to share some of your experience and your background and, some of the fun stories you were able to share with us. And I will be hitting end here. For those of you listening, please make sure to like and follow Habits of Influence on all your major podcast sharing stations. We are also on YouTube, so make sure to like, follow, click the little notification bell, subscribe, however all that works, so you don't ever miss an episode. And we look forward to seeing you every Wednesday, I think 9 a.m. on Eastern time. I always get that mixed up because I'm Pacific time. But yeah, check it out. Make sure to go to habitsofinfluence.com. Check us out on YouTube. Like, follow, subscribe, and all the other fun stuff. And we will see you next Wednesday.